In Efrat. This year continues to be Lulu Nishmat, my father, Rav Abraham ben Eliezer, and Bezrat Hashem. Also, we should see that all the soldiers, wherever they are, as well as we should be Bezrat Hashem see the hostages returned safely in Iraq. Now, this week's Parsha, in this week's Parsha we have the continuation of last week's story where Yaakov runs away from his home based on the insight of his mother Rivka. And Yaakov goes to Lavan's house. At the beginning of this week's parsha, we have the famous story of the famous dream. And this is the beginning of the week, so the dreams, quite a few dreams happen. And in this week's, the famous story is the story of the ladder and Malachim. And then towards the middle of the parsha, we have Yaakov working, getting married to Rachel and Leah, and the old Zilpah get involved, and then all the children in Am Yisrael, the 12 Shvatim, are born, 11 out of the 12 were born in this week's parsha, as well as Dinah. And then at the end, obviously, we have Yaakov starts getting to the point where it's time for him to return. Now, before we go into the actual Zera Shimshon, just something to think about and something to really focus on is in the end of this week's parsha, when Yaakov and Lavan, start getting into a little bit of a fight, or what we think is a fight. Yaakov wants to leave; he kind of runs away, and Lavan goes through a very, gets upset at the fact that he runs away without escaping, without really saying goodbye. And instead of responding, if you look at the words, it's really beautiful, is that it says that, Vayomer machatati, what does it says? Vayomer, he says, Lashon Rakah, this is not here in the Chumash. In the Chumash, he says that Yaakov responds to Lavan, saying, Vayomer, I think he says something like, machatati, something like that. And there are many Mefarshim pick up on the fact that Lavan was obviously upset about this whole situation, and instead of getting upset, responds. Yaakov learns just to say ungoody things. What do you want me to do? Just like very calmly. Vayomer is very always Lashon Rakah, and the bear is always Lashon like a very strong word. Hadibur is a strong thing. And we learn an important lesson just in terms of our responses. That when we learn, and in fact it says that the Gemara and also I believe the Mefarshim and in this week's parsha say that the Avot's ability to restrain themselves at certain times is more important, is even more impressive than the anava of their children, meaning of the descendants of the parent of the Avot. So just something to think about when we learn to respond, and when there are situations that happen to us that might otherwise cause us or call for us to be upset. Take a second, take a deep breath, and respond with a calm manner, and you'll see 9 times out of 10 that that response usually causes a much better response. At least it's a much better response than the yelling that we usually are accustomed to. I can just give you an example. I was in the bank a couple of months ago with my daughter, and I was the first one online. I was the first appointment. And there was someone ahead of me, and I was like, I know I had the first appointment. And this woman was talking to the banker, and I told the banker, listen, I don't have time, I gotta go. And 10 minutes passed, 15 minutes passed, and then finally I said to the banker, listen, it's not okay, it's not a good time, it's fine, I'll leave. She says, no, 5 minutes, I'm done. And then the woman yelled at me, like she gave it to me. She gave it to me like no one's business. And she yelled at me in English and Hebrew, and I was just sitting there, like, what do I do? And I said nothing. I held myself back. I knew I could say something. I held myself back. And even the banker was just, and my daughter said to me, she was like, I've never said nothing. How can you say nothing? I said, because if I said something, I know she just trying to bite my face up. And I said, respond back. I said nothing. And in 3 seconds, she just ran away. And I was just like, that's it. There's nothing to say. What am I going to do that's going to make this better? She's upset that I'm yelling at the banker. And the banker is kind of nervous because he knows that he's promised me my turn. Anyway, so just something to think about when we have these moments of anger.
Also, why take away from that schar?
Right, exactly. So I just held back, and I said, and my daughter to this day, she always says to her friends, Because she's like, my father could do it, anyway, you do it. And I was like, oh. So there's an extra lesson there. I was like, oh, valuable. Anyway, so in this week's Parshat, we have a very unique situation in which children 1 through 10 are born. In the children of Yaakov are born here in this week's Parsha, and right towards it says Vayhi kasher yalda Rachel et Yosef vayomer Yaakov Lavan shalcheni b'lecha el mekom la'atzi. Right, as soon as Yosef is born, in the same pasuk it says Yosef is born, and Yaakov says, okay, I didn't tell you which one left yet. We're going to be doing Givat Shaul, and then we're going to go actually in a second. We're going to go from Vayeitzei to Yeshar, because Zera Shimshon continues his story, offers another idea. But that being said, so the question is, why all of a sudden, when Yosef's birth, why does the pasuk automatically say, okay, now it's time for me to leave? What happened? And the Gemara actually says that we know the Gemara says that why did Yaakov run away? He ran away because he was nervous of Esau. And Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani in the Gemara in Baba Batra, actually, which was just a couple of weeks ago in the Gemara, it says that Yaakov Avinu he knew that that the children of Esau will be handed to the children of Yosef, as it says, "Vaya Beit Yaakov Eish Beit Yosef Laval Esau Lakash." Right, that's the Gemara. The Zera Shimshon says what's so unique. He's going to get to it now. We're going to ask the question. We'll go to Gemara, the Drush Yud Zayin, which is 17, and Shin Lamed Hey.
Shla. Oh, that's a good sign.
So he said there's a short. This one in this week's Parshat Vayeitzei, it's a short question. It's a short drush, but he's gonna expand upon it in Parshat Vayesha, which is unique or interesting that he brings it up there. But I just found a new person who gives out this Givat Torah, and he connects to all three of them. He offers basically at the end of the day, the Zera Shimshon offers 3 approaches to this entire question as to why Yosef. Why the children of Yosef and not the children of, why the children of Rachel and not the children of Leah are the ones that will defeat ultimately Yosef. Not Yosef, will defeat ultimately Esau. So he goes like this.
Also, don't you think Rivka could have told Yaakov some inherent things about her brother, right?
So last week's Parshat, you missed last week. Why didn't Rivka say anything? Saying is, we know that Rivka never said to Yaakov, hey, by the way, Esau is going to kill Yaakov. Like she never said that. All she
right,
said
because
was,
Lashon Hara, she says, right?
Lashon Hara, she was like she was nervous about his kavod. Like if she was, what would have been into disgrace to Yitzchak to say like your 2 sons are fighting it out.
Yeah.
Right. And last week we learned that it was basically that. That one of it was that it would be a disgrace to his kavod and also a disgrace to the brachot that he gave, because he gave brachot to Yaakov. But at the end of the day, he really realized, and it would have said what would have happened. Basically, he would have realized what happened, what he knew about, didn't know about, or what he knew about. The question is that he would have been embarrassed. That Yitzchak would have been embarrassed by the fact that he realized that the brachot that he gave originally to Esau were actually to give them to Yaakov, and then he kind of it would have been disgraceful to him. So he goes through the whole question.
No, but I'm saying I'm straight up with Rivka telling her son, hey,
right, my
brother's an a-hole.
Yeah, my brother's a trickery master.
He's a trickster, he's a con man.
Yeah, so I just read, I forgot where I read it.
But Rachel did that. Like, Rachel was already at the well already. It was like, hey, I know you want to come over, my dad and all. He's bad news. I mean, he's a real trickster.
Yeah, but also, Hashem killed Basual on the spot, but he didn't kill Lavan in Yaakov's case, because Yaakov had to go through that to be a tikkun for Yosef.
It's an interesting question. You would have said, first of all, Rivka should have said something, my brother, but the question is Rivka the right person to say it? Because she herself is the one who kind of encouraged the trickery from the Lechatchila. So to say, hey, my brother is the same kind of me, we have the same gene, it's one thing, it's not appropriate. Second of all there's
one thing with their Kedusha, another thing when it's straight up idol worship.
So that's one thing, and I think also part of Yaakov's extreme, his midah, before we get into the actual Torah, one of his midot, of Yaakov's midot, is that he takes, what do we say, emet Yaakov. right? Only Yaakov takes the combination of Avram's chesed and Yitzchak's gevura, and he learns how to like really, and his simplicity, his ability to just like, most of us would not be able to stay quiet and not do any trickery for 20 years under the guise of some guys. It would be very difficult for most of us to like.
But he also had to learn in the Sheba era first for 14 years to really be able to survive that.
Actually, interesting. Last week we learned it was only shame. It was only Eber, not shame. First of all, and second of all, we also learned last week that
it was just the way they structured the LLC.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea where Shem and Eber's yeshiva was?
No.
It's in what's it called? It's up north somewhere.
Why was only one of them?
That's what we last started looking at. It's here in Efrat?
It's like Efrat, Yerushalayim. It's in that area.
That's like near Zman.
It's like basically it looks like Beit Lechem.
Interesting.
I just discovered that this week.
All right, so we're going down to the Gemara.
Where are you?
We're going to do Drushi of Zion. So try to stay close because what's going to happen is we're going to go in a second to Parshat Vayeitzei. For example, because Zera Shimshon offers another two answers in Parshat Vayeitzei to the same question.
So what was the question?
The question was why. First, we have this. The Gemara mentioned after the pasuk says. Sorry, we'll start with that. The pasuk says that as soon as Yosef is born, Yaakov decides to leave. It's in the same pasuk.
Right.
Extend it, same, one word later. And the question is, why does Yaakov decide to leave after Yosef is born?
Right.
And the Gemara in Baba Bakr, which we're going to mention in a second, he says that there's a Masoret the Gemara says, and at the beginning of the Drush here in Zion, it says, Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Machmani Masoret Agadahi b'yadei. There's a tradition in our hands, she'ein Esav nofel ela b'yad banashal Rachel. As it says, the descendants of Esav will only fall in the hands of the children of Rachel. And if we look through history, let's look through history quickly. Yoshua, where does Yoshua come from?
Yeshua's from Shevet Ephraim.
Ephraim, which is the children of Yosef, right? I wrote here Shaul. Where's Shaul from?
Who?
Shaul.
Shaul's from Binyamin, yeah.
Okay, there we go. Children of Rachel. Mordecai and Esther.
I was going to ask.
Mordecai and Esther. Mordecai's from Ishimini, from Binyamin. Right, so all three of those, that's just a quick history. There's other ones too. But they all fall in the hand of, all the enemies fall in the hand of people from Rachel. So the question is why? What is this Masorah trying to teach us? So,
I have a great answer when this is all done.
go for it. I'm happy to hear it. So he says there's, the Midrash says that therefore here that Hashem said the youngest of the flock, the youngest of the children, the youngest of the children, here in this case he's talking about the children of Rachel, will be the while they calling them the youngest of the flock, right? But these are the youngest of the tribes. So the question is like this. So the first answer he gives is about the Koach of Tefillah, the power of Tefillah, the power of what Leah did. So the question he says here, Yesh Latei Tam, the Zera Shimshon says, why? Let's give a basic level. Lama Dafka Esav Nofel Biyad Banashal Rachel. Why does Esav have to be falling to the hands of Rachel? I'm going to tell you right now that you're probably not going to like the question. You're not going to like the question. I know that's what you're like. All right, so it says, behind the Rishon Rachel, we said we understand that Rachel, Shaita Keret Abayit, right? What is Rachel? We know that Rachel was originally, who was Rachel? Originally Rachel was intended to marry Yaakov, right? Shaita Keret Abayit, as it says later on, it says that the sons of Rachel, the wife of Yaakov, meaning that Yaakov's main wife, let's say, was Rachel. We know already that she already been destined to be in Yaakov's portion. Who was Esav meant to marry?
Leah.
Right? It says, that's why he says on the shot level, but most likely, he says, in the shot level, is that Rachel's children were the ones that were, in other words, Rachel was destined to be Yaakov's wife. And because of what happened, Leah, didn't want to, and now he says, about Leah, Shaitas Rali told the Chokel Yaakov. He said that Leah was meant to be what? Leah was meant to be Esav's wife, right? As we know that Pasuk says, she was crying from Tefillah. The Koach Tefillah was so strong. They asked Koach Tefillah, not that we understand what it really means, but let's just say that she do. As it says, her eyes were tender, smooth, whatever, like soft. whatever, ho'ila tfilatah tzilat atzma, ein lanu mashi tu'il zvuta shebana yayin atzvay yisrael.
Can I ask you a question? I always thought that it was because the people said the oldest, to
Right, that's a Gemara system.
But that doesn't necessarily mean, now it sounds like it's saying that his mom was a zivig and a shemaya.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Right, in other words, I guess we could say like this. You could say that you're right. It was a zibur min hashemayim.
It was.
Yeah, it was.
Because it was the punishment also because he hit her.
We'll get to that in a second.
So it really was min hashemayim. It wasn't just people were saying that.
No. It was meant to happen was Rachel was meant to marry Yaakov.
Right.
Right.
And if Esav was supposed to do later, really was supposed to marry him.
Right. Esav was really supposed to be Leah. Right. Esav was really meant to marry Leah. And then what happened? Leah cries and davens, and she says, the power of Tefillah shows us that she really got what she wanted. But so he says. So an interesting part here in the second, he says here, Leah's tefillot were effective in some way, and it prevented her from what Leah's tefillot were effective in the way that she was able to say, I really don't want to marry Esau. Okay, Hashem says, no problem. You don't want to marry Esau, no problem. You got it. But you're not going to get, I'm going to give you that one. But you can have also, you won't be able to also have the ability for your children to defeat Esau. In the time later on, he says, as he says here, Sharei, you look later on, look what he says, and it prevented her from being able to kind of destroy Esau's descendants. Sharei, I'm remember Breshit Rabbah, as we say in Breshit Rabbah, Shechem b'nei chashka nafsho. Look what happens with Shechem, right? Where Yaakov was, the Chachamim were criticizing actually Yaakov for preventing Esau from marrying Dinah. So what is it Zera Shimshon is saying is, well, let's go back, let's look at two things at the same time. Leah didn't marry Esau, so what about Dinah? Maybe Dinah should marry Esau, right? So Yaakov is criticized in the Gemara. It's not just Zera Shimshon being a fan, but the Gemara mentions that Yaakov was criticized by the Chachamim for saying, "What are you doing? Why'd you hide her in the box?" We know the famous thing that Dinah was hidden in the box. Why'd you hide her? But, right? And he says, "Hare lo bikash lasil mahol." You refused to marry her off to someone circumcised like Esau. Meaning, this is the Gemara saying, Yaakov, you decided to hide her from being married to someone who is, at least he has a breed, right? At the end, you get punished, quote unquote, for being what happens. We know what the story of Shechem and Dinah, right? Lo bikash l'asiyah derech heter. You refuse to marry off in a permissible manner, right? And what happens? Harehim, he said, resource would be marriage in a prohibited manner. So, right. So the Midrash teaches that it's not proper for Yaakov to do what he did for preventing Dinah from Esau. Right? Vav Khan, why would it have happened? Because what was the Gemara is implying, and it's not the Gemara, also the many Midrash would say, is that
she would have done Mamdu Tshuva.
Right, exactly. So the Zera Shimshon says the same thing here. Had Leah married Esau, she could have had the ability to do it. Mm-hmm. She could have said, I can do it. She could have said she would have had it. She did,
and he had a chush.
He had a chush, exactly.
He even went to go marry someone from Yishmael, just like as a something to try to help out.
So that's what he says. He says, he said it was not proper for her to seek mercy. He says that she not fall in Esau's portion, right? He said, maybe had she married him, maybe she would have been able to encourage him to stay on the right path. But it was thus sufficient for her. That's why Hashem says, okay, you don't want that? It's too big for you? It's too big for you? Okay, I'll give you the fact that you don't want to get married to Esau. But that's where you can't have that plus the zchut of having your children be able to destroy Esau's future children for what happened. So he says, okay, so he says since but this part of this Jewish one, if you will, of this question as to why Rachel's children, not Esau's children, Jewish one is that the power of Tefillah, that Leah's Tefillah, we learn the power of Tefillah, what Leah had the ability to do, to switch, to kind of change the future and the destiny of what happened, so that we learn the power of Tefillah. But we also learn that there's a little bit of a time against Leah, meaning you got him for something so hard that you don't realize that maybe that's not what's meant to happen, right? In other words, like she really had the potential to do something. And to Dinah, both of them had it. And instead of saying let's embrace this opportunity, they both said, they kind of balked at the idea. So now if we go...
It doesn't answer the question.
It does, sure it does.
No, it shifts it. Because the original question was, why would the children of it... Like, why not why the children.
Yeah. So the answer is why did children of Leah? Why did Rachel?
We went over, but so why, for example,
Yeah.
if Leah would have been, why would Leah have their children have had this exclusive? It doesn't really answer the question. Why did Yaakov himself wasn't he the children? And Yosef wasn't even born yet. I mean, he was just barely born, right?
Right. So he says. Right. So he says. So the answer is the way I see it, at least.
Yaakov was right out. So why is Yaakov? Why isn't the exclusive enough?
So he says.
And don't forget, he had the power of the brachas already.
So yes, right. So
He had the power of God. Yitzhak gave him the power to misgaber everybody.
Right.
So what does he need anybody else?
So the answer to that would be, I mean, again, I don't have the full answer to it, but I believe that I believe that the answer is that that Leah was asking for too much, meaning she was asking for everything. She was asking both not to marry him and also to be able to say my children should kill Esau. So instead of saying, so Hashem said, I'll give you one. I can't give you both.
Well, I heard that. It's beside the point.
Why is that beside the point?
Again, the Ikka question is why do you have to wait for anybody else? What's the excuse? Like who says? Like let's say Leah had it. So what was her excuse that her children there should have any excuse more than Yaakov himself to defeat Esau? It doesn't make sense.
No,
especially after the bracha that he got by Yitzhak.
So I believe.
All you're doing is shifting the question. You know what you're answering now. Why it shifted over to fine. So where did it come from to start from? Where did the schus, the ability, his special power that Yaakov needed that he himself didn't have? I don't want to hear it went from there to Yaakov. So where did it come from?
So Yaakov, I think, didn't. What you're asking, I think you're asking. Maybe I don't understand, but maybe I hope you're asking the right question here. Is what you're asking is either Yaakov should have enough of the schut or the brachot, so therefore he should be able to do it himself. So that's part one. Or you should say is where's the original? Or you're asking is where's the original schut that Leah was thinking about? Meaning she's saying I have this schut and now I'm willing to relinquish it in order to give it to Rachel because.
So 1 second. So are you saying that because Leah intrinsically had the power to that's what you're saying.
Yeah, she had
to transform Esau.
Yeah, but she decided.
Okay, that's an answer.
Yeah, she said she had the ability.
She loved because of who she was.
Right. She decided. She said, "I want." She originally she was meant to. She was destined, quote unquote, whatever that means. Her zivug was meant to be Esau. Okay. And then she says, "I don't want to marry Esau, even though I'm supposed to, and therefore I'm giving up." Meaning, intrinsically, she's giving up. She's saying, "I'm going to use my power with tefillah instead of saying I'm going to try to fix him and put him on the right direction. I'm giving that up. I'm relinquishing that ability, and therefore I'm giving all the power up. And I'm saying all my tefillahs are going into."
So it was originally the connection through the chibur of the Leah and Esau together, that the children would have been able to, if not her, then at least the children would be able to conquer. And that get transferred over to Yosef.
Right.
Okay, that's
and not Yosef, the Bnei Rachel, because it could have been him. Now let's go to Parshat Vayeitzei. Interesting. I know it's Parshat Vayeitzei, Drush Aleph. It's a reason. There's a reason why I'm asking. This is where the Zera Shimshon mentions. It's a very long Torah. I'm going to go back. We're going to stop. We're going to kind of jump around. But he goes right into the point here. But the question that he asks, if we look in the middle in the beginning, he kind of asks. He asks a couple of questions based on the Gemara, but we'll start where it says, Drush Parshat Vayeitzei, Drush Aleph. I think it's about the middle. It says Vayesh Lomar Daminu B'Baba Batra.
What's that? The page on Shin and Gimel?
Yeah, Shin Pei. That's it. Like Vayesh Lomar right there. Yes, sorry, Shin Pei Aleph. It's on
Baba
Shin Pei.
Basra.
Oh, right. So it says Vayesh Lomar.
So it's about 4 lines down on Shin Pei Aleph.
Yeah, like the second paragraph, right? Yeah. Okay, so he says, there's a reason why I'm doing it, but you'll see in a second. Yep. So the second, in continuation with this question, which I think this answer you like more, even though the first answer was good, the second one was, so he says like this. In the introduction to this part, we talks the Zera Shimshon mentions the whole idea that we know in so he mentions that we learned about it before, but he mentions here about the whole idea that Beit Yaakov Eish, Beit Yosef Lava, Beit Yosef Lakash, the Maf.
That was my answer.
Yeah, after. But anyway, so he mentions that in the beginning, and the question is why we have to. He asked the question, why was Yosef specifically singled out? As in other words, why Beit Yaakov and then why Beit Yosef? Why Yosef? So the question is, what's the connection? That's that's the first few paragraphs of this Torah. He said, "Yesh lomar da'amina b'Baba Bakr Perek." So in Daf Kuf Chaf Gimel of Baba Bakr, which was quoted in the previous in Parshat.
It wasn't so long ago in the Daf Yomi.
Yeah, Daf Yomi was about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
About 3 weeks ago. So he says like this.
Correct.
Which, right, as soon as Rachel gave Yosef, what happens? Yaakov says, it's time for me to leave. Yaakov waited till we came to Canaan until after Yosef, who was like the antithesis, if you will, to Esau. This is exactly the same quote that we quoted in the previous group. He quotes the same Gemara, he says the whole Gemara is quoted again, meaning that the youngest of the flocks will be the one to drag them off. And the Gemara states there, so he continues, so he says that Yaakov returned to Israel knowing, because he saw that Esau would be delivered only in the hands of the offspring of Yosef, as we said in the Pasuk in Ovadia. So now he says, he's going to ask the question again. This answer, I think, is beautiful. It's a beautiful answer that talks about responsibility, in my opinion. Okay, so he says, why specifically the children of Yaakov, of Rachel and or Yosef? And we have to explain that in the Yalkut Shimoni and Shoftim says, Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, again, I believe it's, Shmuel bar Nachmani says, Masoret b'yadinu she'eni sam nofel el b'yad b'nei shel Rachel. Lama she'im ba'im hashvatim l'dinim Esav. Let's say the other 9 tribes, right? Well, sorry, the other 10 tribes. But let's take out Binyamin because Binyamin wasn't born yet. Lomar, right? If the other tribes come to Esav and say, Lomar hadafta et achicha, why are you trying to pursue and trying to kill your brother? Hu haya omer lehem, lama hadaftem et achichem. Why do you, Esau, why do you, brothers, why did you get to run after your brothers? Right? Right? There would be no better than him, meaning both of them are chasing the brother. Right? When Esau comes to Yosef, why did you pursue your brother? And Esau will be unable to answer. If you say, Esau will try to offer a defense for his actions, Yosef would say, wait, if you're defending yourself by saying that Yaakov wronged you, even my brothers did something wrong to me, right? What do we know about the Gemara? What do we know when after Yaakov dies, what happens? Yosef tells his brothers, nothing happened, it's all okay, it's all from Hashem, right? Instead of saying what? Instead of saying, I'm angry, I'm going to kill you, whatever, that's what the brothers wanted. The brothers changed their language to protect themselves, and Yosef just says, it's a kol l'tovah, right? You even said that's what Yadim shotei, right? Esau says that, automatically he's quiet. That's the midrash.
Yeah, the only problem with that is the chronologically, Yaakov only moved when right after Yosef was born.
Right, no, so the point is that we have to look at it from the children's perspective, right? We have to look at it from the descendants of Esau. It's not Esau directly, but Esau's children could say, the children of the Shvatim could say to the children of Esau or to Esau himself and say, obviously it's not you're right, chronologically.
That's the Pashup Shad. He didn't leave until Yosef was born. As soon as Yosef was born, he left. Well, he's not, it's like, you're talking about way in the future.
Yeah, well, again, you have to remember, how old was Yosef?
Why didn't he wait?
How old was Yosef when this whole thing had started? So it happened around 17. So only 17 years, right? In other words, we know that there was a gap.
When did Yosef feel he could face Esau? When Yosef was born.
Yes and no.
17 years, it's 16 and a half years.
Right. So whatever, the point is that I think he's saying is that the descendants, meaning, I don't think it's the Shvatim themselves. I don't think he's saying Esav to the Shvatim. He's saying is that the children of Esav could say to the children of Yaakov, to the children of Yosef, could say, hey, you've chased your brother, I chased my brother's chased me. We both have the same claim. But Esav has a way, Yosef has a way to stop Esav's claim, or the children of Esav's claim. Why? Because he says, Yosef, he says, at the end of the day, I didn't hold any grudge against them. I could have, I should have, but I didn't. And that's, to me, the claim. He says, this is why you take responsibility and say, listen, you're right. We both have strife against our brothers. We both have a grudge against our brothers, but one of us took the high road and said, listen, this is meant to be. And now if we look at it that way, we can say, it's okay, that's a good answer, right? The Tanya that they had, meaning the claim that the brothers
doesn't
had.
fit into the Midrash. The Midrash says the Bnei Achim, I would have just said Yosef then. You just contradicted yourself, not you, but it says the Achim can't say that because he's going to answer back to the Achim, because you did your brother.
Right.
So they contradict the Parshat in the Midrash, which is, because they should have just said Yosef, not the Achim. That Yaakov couldn't face Esav until Yosef was born.
Right.
It doesn't say Yosef, it says the Achim here in the Midrash.
No, so the point is that Esav couldn't be born, Esav couldn't be battled until Yosef was born. Right? That's and then
It says the children of Rachel.
Right, the children of Rachel.
But we just said here the children of Rachel couldn't say anything to Esav because Esav would have said, look how you treat your brother.
It
doesn't fit in Pshat of the Midrash.
Relax.
Sorry.
I understand what you're saying.
I didn't have any whiskey.
Sorry. You should take some.
So the point is, the Midrash says that it's the children of Rachel that can defeat Esav. Okay?
Right.
Binyamin wasn't born yet. Okay? Put
Right.
him aside for a second.
Okay.
Then you have the other 10 sons.
Right.
The other 10 sons, Esav is going to say is, I ran after, what can Yosef say to Esav? Yosef says, hey, we both, let's read it again. Let's say the rest of the tribe with a level of claim against Esav. Right? Why did you chase after your brother?
Right.
And he would say, why did you go after your brother? Right? Then what happens is the playground is now level. It's a level field, right? Yosef says to him, no. Yosef has the power to say, Yosef says, when Esau comes to Yosef, Yosef will say, why did you chase your brother, right? And he says, why can't he say that? Because Yosef says, if you say he did bad.
Okay. Let me rephrase my question.
Go for it.
Again, it should have said here, according to this Pshat, it should have said, not Bnei Shalach, just say Yosef, because Binyamin can't make that claim. It's only Yosef can say.
So right, so that
it doesn't fit in the Pshat of them. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so hold on. So you're right. So you're right. Yosef can make that claim, and maybe Binyamin can't make that claim.
Okay.
However, you're right about that. There is something to be said about that, and that's one of the things that I still have a question about the why Binyamin. No, and sometimes they say it's Binyamin, and sometimes they say it's Yosef. Yeah. But like you said, this claim.
The first answer is better. I mean, we're talking about the
right. This claim. He said here. Look at this. We're about to continue. Look what he says. Aval kashek shenolad Yosef. Right. When Yosef was born, right? There you go. None of these answers, the claims, were good. There you go. Right? You're mitkaven to the Iyun Yaakov. So good for you. Just like you said. Right? He should have just said, in the hands of Yosef. Right, there you go. See? There you go. Below Rachel, not Rachel's son. Do you want some more drink? What's your name? David Melech Yisrael. He is. What? Hold on. What Shevet is from? Do you know?
David Melech.
David is from Shevet Yehuda. We're going to get to this in a second. Where Shevet Yehuda, right, is from Bnei Leah, and Bnei Yosef. Mashiach ben Yosef comes first. And in the time of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David,
it ties all together.
Right, they come together. It's the first time that the two Bnei Leah and Rachel. We'll get to it later. Anyway, so he says, you want something else to eat? Want some chips? Chips?
Where's the gum? Where's the candy? Where's the sugar?
The candy. I am the candy in my shul, but I agree. Anyway, so he says, he asked the question. He's right. He should have said, right? Rachel has no question. Is no, like you said, Rachel has no connection. It should have just said Yosef, because Yosef is the only person who can make that claim. Like you said, Baram Kushakar. The truth is, right? So now he says this is the next kind of piece, and I like this one a lot also. So he says that another reason why did he return, he was nervous that what was Esav going to say? Esav was going to say, how do you marry two sisters?
You're trying to keep the Torah. You
Right.
took my wife.
Esav was going to say, I got the best claim against my brother. My brother is the guy who's supposed to be following the Torah. Hey, look what happened. Right?
Stole my wife.
Right? So he says, due to this, Yaakov continues to delay until he gets to Yosef. Why? And now he's going to say, how is Yosef's presence going to be the critical factor, the linchpin? We spoke about David. Here, Yaakov, what we know that the Gemara says in Kiddushin, that when we're checking, the halacha is, the Chumash says, the Torah says, that when we're checking for chayalim, when we're recruiting soldiers, according to the Torah, when we're recruiting soldiers, what do we have to do? We have to make sure that they don't have sins. Right? They're not nervous, they're not scared about the sins that they may have committed. That's the Torah. David HaMelech comes when David HaMelech says, I want one extra. I want them to have yichus. Why? Because then they have zchut avot. Beyond just the mitzvot that they do themselves, then they're not nervous about their chata'im, but also they have zchut avot. That's what David HaMelech says. And in fact, the Gemara in Kiddushin says that when someone says, when they're trying to show their yichus, they say, I come from the family who was a soldier of David's army, then we don't have to say anything else. Because once a person says that, we know that the yuchus is good. Shayu kulam yuchasim. Right? What's the reason? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav. Like I said, Kadesh is chutam zchut avotam misayatam. The Gemara says that why? So there is zchut because they don't have any sins. Plus the zchut avot will be there for them. Right? A person doesn't go to war unless he has. Right? If you don't have a legitimate lineage or yuchus, you can't go because you're in constant danger. You don't go to war. So now, what does he say? He says, if Yaakov were to have indeed transgressed the prohibition of marrying two sisters, only this. Why would Bnei Rachel be blemished and not the Bnei Leah? Because Rachel was the one, even though Rachel was the one to be destined to marry Yaakov, what was the reason? The reason is because Rachel was the second sister that got married. Right? Leah was the first one, so she's okay. But the second one, Rachel, right? Leah was first. And if Yaakov himself would conquer Esau, right? So he's saying, even though he was innocent of marrying two sisters, right? He said, right? So he says here like this.
Even if he was not.
Right, despite his ostensibly not being innocent of sin because he married two sisters, not being innocent, right? Meaning being guilty, right? So he says, whereas one who was, as a sin in his past, generally returns from the army instead of participating in the war, right? Because he sinned. Right? It would not prove that he would never sin, for we could say instead that he repented, maybe did tshuva. Right? That's what we know. If the children of Leah would be victorious, we could say that maybe Leah's children, why would it say that if let's just say, right, let's put this out for a second, hold on, before you ask the question.
I'm trying to understand it, like he's saying he could have done tshuva by that time.
No, hold on. What he's saying is, why do we say that when let's take out the war situation for a second, and I'll use the Yaakov and Esau situation. Yaakov says, I'm nervous that Esau is going to have a claim against me. I married two sisters, right?
Right.
If Leah's, now let's just say Leah was since Leah married Yaakov first, so she's legitimate, right? For a second, for the purpose of this, to explain. So if Leah's children would have beat Esau, what would we say? Oh, they have yichus, right? The yichus is there, right? So he says, and what could Esau say? Since he could still claim that what? That Rachel's children are Prunim, right? In other words, because Rachel was the second sister to get married, so the children are Pugum, or God forbid, they're blemished. L'fichach ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu she'esav lo yipol el b'yad b'nei Rishon Rachel davka shemizeh yakiru v'yedu kol ha'olam she'Yaakov beheter na'asav Rachel. Right? U'v'nehem hem yuchasim. He says like this: Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to show, and instead of saying is Leah's children are the ones that are going to be the ones victorious, it has to be Rachel's children, because Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to show Esau that you have no claim. I'm giving the power of the ability to beat you, Esau, to Rachel's children, so that you can know that the children of Rachel are on equal stature to the children of Esau. Meaning that Hashem said that I need to. How am I going to prove? Right? Hashem knew that there was going to be a problem. Right? There's a very big problem here, and he says that that's the answer is that Kadosh Baruch Hu want, and we're going to explain how this happens. So let's see here. Hold on a second here. I'm just trying to find the end of the verse here. No, okay, so we're before I yeah, I don't want to. It gets a little bit deeper into this thing, but the point is that there are three answers basically as to why. We're going to kind of summarize for this part. Three answers as to why. Yet Rachel's children. This is like Drush 1 if you want to, we'll see how much time we have left. But Drush 1 is, we just did Drush Yud Zayin and also Drush 1 of Vayeitzei intentionally because they're connected. So the three possible answers. One is the power, to show us the power of Tefillah, Leah's Tefillah. That Leah was intrinsically meant to marry Esau, and she couldn't bear, she couldn't take that responsibility seriously, whatever that means. God forbid she might be belittling Leah's sitkut, but she couldn't say, she said, I'm willing to daven hard enough to not be part of Esau, meaning not to be married to Esau, and I'm ready to give up my children's ability to beat Esau down the line. But her tefillot were so strong that we know already that it says, her eyes were very soft and very kind of, filled with tears, because she was davening so much that she shouldn't be married to. And so Hashem said, well, you don't want to, I can't give you both. Originally, you should have been the one to destroy Esau, or at least you should be, actually not destroy,
Transform him.
You're transforming. You didn't want to do that, so I'm giving you the, I'm listening to your tefillah, but I'm not giving you the ability that children, because you took that on you, upon yourself, so now Esau is going to be your enemy, the enemy, and now the children of Rachel have the ability to, and the zchut to beat Esau. The second answer is as follows, based on Parshat Vayeitzei, in the first Jewish Parshat Vayeitzei. 1 second here. Okay. So he says the second one is that the only, in the event that we know that that the brother, basically what happens is that the question is what happens when why Dafka Rachel's children, or in this case why Dafka Yosef, because this answer specifically which one was Yosef, as you said. So the answer is that the only person that can come and claim against Esau is Yosef. Yosef, because every one of the other Shvatim, except for Binyamin who's not involved here, but all the other Shvatim don't have a claim to say, hey, Esau, what are you doing? Because Esau will say, well, you're also held a grudge against your brother. Not only that, my grudge, at least I have somewhat of a valid grudge, because he stole something from you. You're doing it on what? You're doing it based on dreams. On a dream that you had, that he's going to rule you, so you decide to hold him and potentially kill him, sell him to the Egyptians and wherever. So what kind of claim do you have? So the only person who can say, I have a claim, is Yosef, because Yosef could say, I held back. At the end of the day, I said this was all for the best. And since I have that claim, Esau has never that ability. And the only person who has that is Yosef. He doesn't really answer the question as to why that's Yosef as opposed to the other brothers, but let's just say that the answer is that the point is that Yosef's ability to understand and to kind to hold on to the ability to say that really everything is l'tovah. That's answer number 2. Answer number 3 is, why is it specifically the children of Rachel? Because when you go out to war, you need people who are, you don't necessarily people who are strong, you need people who are, the Torah says you need only people who are tzaddikim, right? Not sin, right? They're not sin, right? And when you go, the Torah says one thing, and then David comes and says, I want the second thing, I want Yuchus. That's based on the Gemara. It's Chut Avot, right? So Yosef says, so the question is, so now we have the Yuchus, and then if that's the case, then what's Esav going to say? Esav has a nice good claim. He's always going to hold it against the children of Yaakov and say, listen, you married 2 sisters, right? And I have this, you're claiming Yichus, but then what should have happened? The Yichus should have then gone to Bnei Leah. So Bnei Leah should have been the one. But Hashem says, no. I want to show that it's not the Yichus. It's not that, he wants to say is that the status, in this case specifically, Rachel and Leah, in this case, and only in this case, Rachel is the one who gets the Bnei Rachel are the one who gets the kedusha, the ability to be Esav, to show that it's not only that the yichus of Rachel's children are at the same level as the yichus of Leah's children, and instead of just saying Esav to prove or to disprove Esav's claim against the fact that he married 2 sisters, because that could have been a claim that Esav could have made. And Hashem says, no, I don't want that to be the claim. I don't want that to be the claim ever. So in order to make sure that Esav doesn't have that claim, Hashem says, no, I'm giving the yichus, I'm elevating the status of the yichus to Rachel, who otherwise would have been a problem. So that's the first kind of long, but 3 answers. Again, it just shows you Shivim Panim LaTorah, really a nice, long, but interesting approach to the entire experience, to the entire story of why Yosef and why Yosef specifically. Now I'm going to go to let's see if we have about 15 minutes, right?
Yeah, it's Marv.
There was a Marv last week. You were here.
Yeah.
It's a matter of a few minutes since you read the video.
No, it's
They're
here.
not going to do it. They're doing it here, aren't they?
They're doing it here.
I didn't.
Yeah, 1:45.
Surgery is 9 o'clock.
1:30, no?
No, 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Shoot, David, and Marv is at 9:45
Yeah,
here.
but I don't think you're doing it every week now.
9:27.
I thought you said that, no?
Are they doing it every? They do it every
I
night.
don't know. I thought you said that last week.
No, last week. I think last
Why
week
did you do a minion last week?
they do it every night.
Every night,
That's what I
9:45.
just said.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to down Marv.
Yeah.
You guys talking about church, I mean, I'm like, there's a Marv here.
No, I think they do it every night.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Let me just see if I can find a short one. Work in the time frame that we have.
It's been a rough day. Just space it
Okay, we can do Jewish Vav. Jewish Vav is nice.
out. Where's that going?
In Parshat, but it's a good question. You're right. We jumped around. So Parshat, Jewish Vav. So we know in the beginning of this week's Parshat, it says, one second, I just want to see if maybe we'll do a different one instead. Yeah, okay, so Jewish Vav. So Jewish Vav says, we know that the dream, the beginning of this week's parsha starts with Yaakov's dream. It says, Pasuk Manarama Makom Hazeh In Zekim Bet Elohim. Right, so he says, we know that Yaakov says this place is, the word awesome, not like we use it today, but there's nothing other than Hashem. This is not only what is it? This place is the Shara Shemayim and Beit Elohim. Kashay, the Zera Shimshon says, Lama Amar B'Lashon Shlila Ein Zeh. Why did Yaakov say there is nothing other? Right? You should have said something. Hayalo Amar Beit Elohim. Like you should have said this is it. Why do you have to say like there's nothing other? We're Drush Vav, Parshat Vayeitzei, Daf Shin Tet Vav. In these far
At the bottom.
Yeah, at the bottom. So he says, Lama Dafka Amar Hashem Shel V'od, Lama Dafka Amar Hashem Shel Nora. Why do you say the word awesome? Umal Ma Nora. And also, what is the meaning of how awesome is this place? Mashma Nora B'yoter, meaning it's that amazingly awesome. I have one of my uncles always says this. He doesn't use the word awesome at all.
So
He says it's too overused, and we really should be using it only for one thing to describe Hashem.
But you know what's weird? is he didn't realize that was the muck of the mikdash.
Yeah. So
But he didn't realize that after the dream.
right. He didn't realize that. That's exactly.
He didn't
right.
feel there was nothing.
Right. So he didn't know that. He didn't realize that yet. But he still says this place is awesome. Right. So he says, "V'katav Beit Yosef Orach Chaim Siman Tuvkaf Mehem B'Shem Hagavot Mordecai." He says in the name of the Mordecai, and he says, "Yesh b'nei adam shemesimim even tachad Osham ve'el tzitav alav." He says, our people, the Beit Yosef quotes the Mordecai and says that there are people who put a stone under their head. Nowadays, we kind of do is we sleep on the floor. Some people do, we'll sleep under,
And then Tisha B'Av.
right. So he said on Tisha B'Av, meaning on Tisha B'Av specifically, you sleep on the floor, you sleep on, you take the mattress off, instead of putting the mattress on the bed, you sleep with some change. He said, why does it say that? He says, he slept on, we know that Yaakov slept on one of the stones, right? In his dream it says, Beit HaMikdash Ra. We know that the Midrash says, it's not just, we know that he said, we saw the Beit HaMikdash, Lichtiv Man Ra Makom Hazeh, B'Churban Ra. And he also saw Churban. That's what the Beit Yosef quotes the Mordecai for saying.
So that's why he took the stone.
That's why you take the stone, is you take the stone because of the Churban. You don't say they take the stone because of just because it's down. You sleep on the stone.
You needed a pillow.
You need a pillow, right? Exactly. That's not exactly a pillow. Kasher. How do we know? Where do we see the hint? Right? Maybe I could say he saw the Beit HaMikdash. I can understand that because he said Manara Makom Hazeh. But how do you say? How do you get to the point that he saw the Churban too? Right? I can hear. The other one is a little harder. So now he says. This is what we have to explain. Manara Makom Hazeh. How awesome is this place? Beit HaMikdash Ra'ah, he said this place, Beit HaMikdash Ra'ah, this place is, we're talking about Beit HaMikdash. After seeing Beit HaMikdash, did not simply say, this is the house of Hashem. Ella, Ein Ze Oto Beit HaMikdash She'yer Kayam Lai. This is not Shizat Charev. So he says, Umab Beit HaMikdash Yitkayem, Ma Shivnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Me'atzmo, Ki'im Beit Elohim. So he says, he's answering these questions, so why does the Gemara use why does the Pasuk use or why does Yaakov say the specific way? He's saying this is not the house of God, right? This is not anything other than the house of Hashem. Ein said, Yaakov is saying that this Mikdash is not eternal, meaning it's not forever. For this one is destined to be destroyed. Which is the one that Hashem, Beit Mikdash will exist. As it says, that what we know, the Gemara in the Midrash and Gemara mentions it also. He says that the third Beit HaMikdash is the one that will be built by Hashem himself, not by people, not by humans. Right? So he's saying there's nothing other than the house of Hashem, meaning Yaakov was saying that nothing other than the house of Hashem, meaning the Mikdash that was built by Hashem, will be the one that lasts forever. Meaning this L'olam Hu Shar Shemayim, but this place will be forever the place for Shar Shemayim. So he's saying that when the pasuk says Manara Makom Hazeh Ein Zeh, the word Zeh repeats twice. You didn't ask that question, which you should have asked, right? Ein Zeh, Manara Makom Hazeh Ein Zeh Ki Beit Elohim. So he's trying to say is that he's putting two things in. Zera Shimshon is putting two things in. How did Yaakov know? That he knew, it's not the Beit HaMikdash we could say, but he says it's also Shar Shemayim, it's also the place. So what the Yaakov Avinu was saying is, this place that we see, the Beit HaMikdash that I see, is not the actual Beit HaMikdash that's going to be the one forever. The one that's going to be forever is, he says, is Beit Elohim, the Beit Elohim, the one that Hashem builds. That's the house that is going to be permanent. The other one, the one that I see, is going to be the Beit HaMikdash that is going to be destroyed, and that's why he chose this stone. And he says, but this place, the area, meaning it's not the physical thing, but rather the place itself, the Kedusha of the place itself, is the Shar Shemayim. Meaning he's acknowledging that this place is holy, but he's also acknowledging that the physical building is not permanent until Hashem himself brings it, builds it. And now he says, why do we say the word? Now let's go back to the question as to why we specifically use the word manara. It says, okay, right? It says here, we know that Daniel, after, as known in the Gemara and Yoma, it says that after the Churban, that after the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, Yirmiyahu and Daniel didn't want to say Gibor v'Norah, right? They didn't want to say it to talk about Hashem in the first bracha of Shemon Esrei, what do we say? Ha'el ha'gadol ha'gibor v'hanorah. The Gemara says in Yoma, says that we didn't want Yirmiyahu said that we shouldn't do that. Because why? Because Hashem, because we have enemies that destroy the Beit HaMikdash. And Daniel says, argued that calling Hashem powerful when we were just put into Galut is also not appropriate, right? Rather Hashem.
I don't understand that.
What do you mean?
What?
Daniel
It
and
implies that
Daniel and Yirmiyahu both said we shouldn't use the words Gadol and Norah to describe Hashem in the Shemon Esrei after the destruction of Beit HaMikdash.
I heard that.
Okay?
I understand. Why?
So the Gemara says, Yirmiyahu says that our enemies have destroyed and defiled the Beit HaMikdash. Right? Where can we show that Hashem is really awesome? How can we show Hashem is awesome if you just got, Beit HaMikdash just got destroyed?
It's not happening. It's going to get cold.
Yeah, it'll be okay. Okay, so and Daniel says, how can we describe Hashem as powerful when we just were sent into exile? Right? So where does this play?
On the contrary, what it's going to show that Hashem's weak if you don't.
Hold on, he's gonna get to that in a second. Your questions are very good. You're mechaven to the right things. So he says,
I promise you I haven't seen this.
That's okay.
I believe you.
What do they say? Anshe Knesset Gedolah say exactly what you say. Anshe Knesset Gedolah says there are, and he says, this itself, like you said, are indeed his awesomeness, right? Because if not for Hashem's awesomeness, what would happen? How can one person survive among the rest of the nations? Or how can we say that the fact that the Hashem Beit HaMikdash was destroyed and still, right, even though they tried to destroy the Jewish people, so they destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. Yes, it's sad. Yes, it's horrible. Yes, it's we're so sad about it. But what happened? The Jewish people still survived. Right, like you said, these are his great things. These are his qualities. Meaning, he could have easily, what could have happened? The Jewish people could have been destroyed. Right? It didn't happen. Right? So yes, the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. And yes, we were sent into Galut. Right? And we adopted Norah Hayam Midato Sheyachol. Yaakov was the Midah of Norah. When we look in the secrets of Shemon Esrei, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, each one of them corresponds to one of them. We see that Yaakov was saying, so what he's saying is exactly what you're asking. He's saying it's exactly the fact that they were destroyed, even though, not this fact, even though the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, and even though you might say, how can we say it? How can we say it? And Daniel and Yirmiyahu
Why is the God's weak?
Right, exactly. So he says, no, the Anshe Knesset Gedolah said the opposite. It shows that even though Bnei Israel could have been destroyed, and the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, but it shows Hashem's awesomeness and his power to say, even though that was Beit HaMikdash and we were sent into Galut, the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash and we were sent into Galut, the fact that we still survived and we still got through somehow. We magically survived, right? It was clear that Hashem loves us so much. It shows his awesomeness and it shows his greatness. We can't look at the negative like what Yirmiyahu and Daniel said. In fact, the opposite. Why are we challenging? Why are Yirmiyahu and Daniel challenging you? In fact, we should be saying is what? Yes. We acknowledge the fact that the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed. We acknowledge it. It's okay. It's fine to say that, but we also have to acknowledge the fact that Hashem allowed us to survive and live throughout the years. There were many times when we say, what just happened? Right? How could that happen? Right? There were many questions. Not too long ago in history, we just saw it. Again, how can this happen? Right? How can we say, where's God? Right? Like all these questions. And I said, no, look at what happened through that. Look what did it enable us to do? Enable us to have the tefillot, the chesed, the greatness of us doing things for other people, right? And all of a sudden you say, wait a minute, so maybe, I'm not saying that it's a good answer, I'm not saying it's the right thing, but sometimes it's hard to swallow, but maybe you have to say sometimes the tzarot bring us closer together, and sometimes those tzarot allow us to see a Yad Hashem when we otherwise take it for granted. Maybe that's what he's trying to say here. Saying is that the Anshe Knesset Gedolah says exactly that. And what he's saying is the reason why, when you look at El HaGadol, HaGibor, HaNorah, each one of those Gadol, Gibor, Norah, each one of them corresponds to Elokei Abraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. Elokei Abraham is Gadol, Gibor is Yitzchak, as we know the Gvura, and then Norah is Yaakov. And Yaakov, that's why Yaakov is the one who says, Man Norah HaMakom Hazeh. Why is this place so great? The awesomeness of Hashem is sometimes we don't appreciate the awesomeness of Hashem until we see the destruction. And that's what he's saying here.
Right. So, So to tie it,
Shkoyach.
Yeah.
the big
Fine.
issue brought up, and what's the